Hello, welcome to my channel. Today we're looking for an unidentified female. She's a Jane Doe, and we're wondering who could she be. They found her February 23rd, 1970 in Columbia County, Oregon. She died 1 year prior. She was 17 to 25 years old. It says she was a black female, 5'3" to 5'7". They're not sure of her hair color, but it was short. And they found a black Afro-style wig near the remains. And they did some DNA phenotyping that suggested her natural hair may have been the same coloration. And some of those tests, without seeing the percentages, when you see the percentages online, it kind of it helps when you're looking at these things. Even though I'm not a professional or anything, but I've seen some of the percentages online, and I'm like, whoa, that's really close to being something else, Anyway, they found skeletonized partial remains in Columbia County, Oregon, February 23rd, 1970. Her skull was not recovered. The original case file cannot be located. The case was later submitted. Okay. Wow. Anyway. And they believe she died about a year prior. So, and we're going to look at people who went missing. We have this person went missing in 1968, and that's Winnefred Jeanette Freeman. She's an African-American female. It says she went missing from Portland, Oregon, and I would think that wouldn't be too far from Columbia County, Oregon, but I haven't mapped it out. She was 5'4", 115 to 120 pounds, and it just says she was last seen on May 8th, 1968, so there's really not a lot of information there about her. And then we have Gladys Thelma Williams. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing that right. She was last heard from February 20th, 1970, which was only 3 days, if it's right, because, I never know. If it's right, she was 19 years old, and it says she dropped her children off at her sister's residence and then went missing. Sometimes I wonder if the dates are correct. I question everything. So then I tried to find out who else would have been missing about that time. And so we're going to go through some of those, but they're not African-American females. These are the only 2 African-American females that I could find. That doesn't mean they're the only 2. Maybe somebody reported somebody missing and they got lost in the paperwork. So if you know somebody else that's missing that this could be, you should probably contact authorities. And if you know what happened to these girls, you should also contact authorities, because they may not have that information. Though you may have given it to them years ago, they may not have that information anymore. We had this girl, she went missing from British Columbia, and she's not African American. It says Aboriginal, so I don't know. And I don't know what their percentages were and things like that, but she was 18 years old. So I don't know if it could have been her or not. But there's her information. And then we have this young lady, but she's white. She went missing January 1st, 1969 from British Columbia. She was 18 years old, and she had blonde hair. She was supposed to meet her parents in Calgary, but she didn't show up. So that was the last she was ever heard from. So that's a bummer. And then we have this one. Laura Flink, and she went missing in February of 1969 from Washington. She was 21 years old. She was driving her live-in boyfriend's 1967 red Ford Ranchero toward Moclips, Washington at about 1600 on the afternoon of Friday, which should be about 4 o'clock, February 21st, 1969. She never arrived at the location. She was en route to pick up some furniture and children's clothing. Her brown leather wallet was found in Holcomb, Washington sidewalk on Sunday, February 23rd, and the vehicle was recovered on Monday, February 24th, also in Holcomb, Washington. Her wallet was mailed by the Holcomb police to her Aberdeen post office box, where it was never picked up. She never returned to her waitress job, and there was no contact with family or friends since. She had no other income, and she left behind a 16-month-old son, which she had just won custody through the... Oh, yeah! She went to somebody else's house that wanted custody of the child to get furniture, and that was the last they've ever seen of her, and I don't think they pressed charges against them or anything, but I'm not sure if they did, because I vaguely remember this, but I think that's what happened. I think somebody told her not to go, and they didn't want her to go alone, but she did go alone, and she needed the furniture for the children, and she was trying to put the children first, and those people wanted custody, and that was the end of her, I guess. So, and she hasn't been seen since, so I don't know what they did or what happened to her, but I think that's what I remember. Don't quote me on that, I could be wrong. And then we have this young lady. She went missing from New York. And that's really far away, so I don't think there's any possibility that it could be her. She was 19 years old when she went missing. She was last seen at Lum's restaurant in Rotterdam at 11 p.m. Connie's girlfriend left Lum's restaurant on Altamont Avenue, Rotterdam, in her own car and believed Connie was leaving in her own car to go home. Connie was never seen again. Connie's car was found the next morning at Friendly's Ice Cream on State Street. Foul play is suspected. Wow, that's so sad. And then we have this lady. She went missing from Massachusetts in 1969. And she was 25 years old. She was engaged to get married. It says we believe she left her fiance and no one knows where she went. She just disappeared. So I don't know if she broke up with him or what happened, or who knows? Nobody knows, right? And then we have this young lady who went missing in 1969 from New Jersey. And she was only 17 years old. She was 5'7". Wow, that's a long one. Rosemary was last seen August 25th, 1969, around 1800. That would be 6 o'clock, as she left her family's Center Avenue residence to go to the store, located only 2 blocks away. Described as a bookish girl, very shy, Rosemary had just turned 17 and only recently had gone on her first date. She was the youngest of 4 children, the only one still living at home, and her life pretty much revolved around school, scouts, and her family. Her parents were strict, and Rosemary wasn't allowed out at night unless she was chauffeured by her parents. When she hadn't returned later that night, her mother went to the police. 4 high school boys, neighbors, and classmates of Rosemary claimed they had seen her riding through town with a stranger the night of her disappearance. They had spotted Rosemary riding in a beat-up white Ford Galaxy convertible. They didn't recognize the older guy at the wheel. Based on their recollection, a composite sketch of the man and a description of the car was released to the newspapers 2 days before Rosemary's disappearance, and at about the same time of the day, 2 young girls had been walking along Center Avenue in Leonardo when a stranger in a white Ford with a black rag top pulled up alongside them. The driver tried 3 times to pick the girls up before they ran home and told one of their mothers about the incident. The mother then called the police and reported it. The daughter had mentioned the car's license plate and had written it down. When investigators ran the plate number, they found the car belonged to Robert Zarinsky. Robert Zarinsky, a former Linden grocer, was eventually convicted in Rosemary's death. For years after his conviction, Zarinsky insisted he'd never even met the teenager. He eventually admitted killing her accidentally by backing over her in his car, but he never told anyone what he did with her body. Okay, and then we have this young lady, and she went missing from Maryland, and it looks like she had a child. She was only 21 years old. Linda May, I don't know how to pronounce that, and her daughter Lori were allegedly kidnapped and murdered by Stanley B. Haas Jr., a convicted cop killer who grabbed the mother and daughter in the parking lot of the former King's department store in Laval on September 22, 1969. She was a waitress. Their bodies were never recovered. So those are the people that were about the age. They're about the age 17 to 25 that went missing around 1969. But like I said, this one says 1968. But, I don't see anyone else. Anyway, that would be out of all of these, this would be the one that I would think that it might be, right? It might be Winnefred. Because they're wondering what happened to her, and that's the one that I would be. She's 20 years old, 5'4", so, and she's in Oregon. And how far is Portland from Columbia County? Let's check that out, since it's Portland, Oregon to, was it Columbia County? I think it was Columbia County, Oregon. An hour. It's only an hour and 15 minutes, so yeah. She went missing really close to where the Jane Doe was found. So, and I don't know if she wore wigs or not. You think she had really short hair and wore a wig? Maybe. Maybe she did. Anyway, please feel free to leave comments, and don't forget to pray for these people and their families and their loved ones that don't have closure. And all these Jane Does should have, they deserve to have the name of who they are put with them and be identified, so that their families can have closure and people will know what happened to them, and maybe they can get their remains and scatter their ashes, or even put ashes in a necklace or something like that for them, because that's just horrific to never know what happened to your loved one. And please feel free to leave comments, and thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day. Bye-bye.